Hi, it's Paul with Orlando Bonsai again, and took a week off last week for vacation, but we're back and we're going to kind of go over one of the things that I definitely do this time of the year and definitely needs to be done, which is defoliating. And some of you might not understand what that is and why you would do it, and I just want to kind of cover the basics with it because it's pretty important to do, and it's a good way for you to take advantage of the growing season. You can get an additional growing season or two by defoliating your trees instead of waiting for nature to go through the seasons of putting out new growth in the spring and then waiting till fall for the leaves to fall off and going through the winter dormancy period. You can actually have that happen a couple times in a year if you defoliate yourself, but you've got to time this right so that the tree has time to recover and it doesn't do any damage to the tree itself. But normally I do this at around the 4th of July weekend, just because it's so warm here in Florida at that time that you want to get this when the tree kind of slows down. You don't want to do this when the initial growth, because the tree is already trying to put leaves out in the springtime. So what you're going to do is you're going to work on it after the initial springtime growth and after the leaves start to slow down. And in this case, since it's so hot in Florida, they actually start to shrivel up a little bit. And I'll take a few samples and show you what happens. And this will actually occur all through the rest of the summertime down here. You can see how they actually dry up and become very brittle on the edge. And this would not fall until late September or October here in Florida. So I'd like to take care of this right now. By by defoliating the tree, it's going to cause it to put out a brand new flush of leaves, which means a better food source, much greener leaves. These are all discolored, very badly because of the harsh sun down here. Defoliating can be done on any tree. This is a trident maple, but you can do this on sweet gum, elms, any kind of maples. Really any tree that drops its leaves in the fall. That's a deciduous type of tree. You don't want to do this with every kind of tree, but this is the type of tree that I do in the middle of summer, because what happens when it gets very warm, the trees slow down and they almost go into a dormancy period like they do in the wintertime. Not quite, but they still have growing, but they do it very, very slowly. So it's a perfect time to do this. And once we get the leaves off, what we're going to find is the structure of this tree, the branching has changed quite a bit. So it'll give us a good opportunity to clean up the branching, cut back where we need to, and then give it another opportunity to put out secondary branching and a brand new set of leaves. Of course, they're going to come in a little bit smaller, just because that's what happens. The second leaf is already set, or the bud's already set on the branch to send out that second leaf, and it's going to come a little bit smaller, but it'll just give it a really good chance. And then these leaves, the new set, will stay actually well into the cold weather. There's some times when they don't actually drop after cold weather, and I actually have to pull them off to put it into dormancy in the wintertime. But it's just a good way to get these things through spring. And like I said, you get a second growing season, because what would normally happen, new leaves in the spring, wait till fall for them to drop. But what happens now is we get new leaves in the spring, drop now in July, put the new flush of leaves out by the end of July, and then those leaves will drop around the end of September or October. So we then have two growing seasons. Easier way and a quicker way to develop your trees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I tend to pull them off a little bit, but I don't do it in a ripping fashion, because you don't want to hit that secondary bud that's already ready to come out. You just kind of want to pull the tips off. You can leave the stem a little bit. You can either pull these off just by pulling the tips, and I usually hold the stem a little bit and just pull the tip of the leaf off. Or sometimes you can use a set of clippers, whichever is easier for you. This is about as boring as you can get to watch somebody pull leaves off a tree. So I'm going to maybe fast forward through a little bit of this stuff, and then I've got a few things to talk about as I go through it. But just sit back and relax and watch how boring it is to pull leaves off a tree. It's a pretty windy day out here today, so I'm still going. It's been about 15 minutes. This is taking a very long time. This tree has a ton of leaves, but I'm already finding areas such as this, and then right in here you can see when the foliage fills out on the tree, it's hard to see the details in the structure that you establish early on when the tree is totally defoliated. We had this thing wired back and wired in position, but since then we get new growth that comes up, and what we have is crossing branches. So what I'm going to do is I'll reduce this type of growth back. This stuff that's going straight up, we'll take that out, and you can see a little bit of the branching that was wired. The tips as they grow start to curve up because everything wants to go towards the sun. So that'll be wired down and reduced back. But this is exactly the type of thing that we're looking for, because this wouldn't be noticed until October or November of this year had we not defoliated, which means that this wouldn't be able to be corrected until February or March of next year. Now I'm going to have it corrected this year, so when it defoliates at the end of the year, I've already got these problems solved, so that I can deal with it again as it starts to put out new growth. It just saves me months of time and years of time by working with the problems now as they occur, instead of waiting for them to be discovered after the tree defoliates. Something like this, that's about 18 inches worth of growth right there that I'm going to be able to cut back, have secondary branches grow back on this branch already, and that'd be that much further ahead. It just saves so much more time that way. And I'm going to continue to keep pulling leaves off the tree. Takes a long time to do this, but it's well worth it. And it's just a really nice, good chance to see if there's any wire still on the tree. This is when you want to take a look to make sure that all the wire that you did earlier this year is being removed, because by now it's definitely going to be digging in, and you want to avoid that situation for sure. I tend to start at the bottom of the tree, work on the lower branches first, and then work my way up. Generally work around the tree, and then eventually work your way to the very top. It never fails. You're going to miss some leaves just because there's so many, and from certain angles you really don't even see them. It's just when you're standing off to the side is when you start to notice that the leaves are there. So you'll take one or two passes after you do your initial leaf removal, and you'll continue to find some leaves. But it just takes a little bit of time to get rid of all the leaves. Defoliating, I want to remove all the leaves. You don't want to leave any on any branches that you're working. Now there is an exception, and I'll show you as we get to the top of the tree, that you will want to leave some leaves on the tree. But we'll deal with that in just a few minutes. In the meantime, sit back. I'm going to continue to go through this tree and pull more leaves off. Well, I could have sworn I had all the wire taken off this tree, but as I'm digging my way through all the leaves, I'm finding some wire left on. Now, the sad thing about it is that this stuff has already been on for about 6 months. Probably could have come off at 3 months, and it's dug in pretty good. And with the maple, it's definitely going to show any scars like that. But the good thing about it is I'm taking it off now, whereas if I had not defoliated, this stuff would have been sitting on there for the entire year. Now, even though there's a little bit of a scarring in here, that's not as deep as it could have been, so hopefully I have not lost the entire branch. So by getting it off right now, saved a lot of work that I made. And it probably could have cost me a good full year of replacing a branch, cleaning up a branch, just by just simply taking the leaves off, so that I could get to the leaves or get to the branches to actually see the wire that's still there. So one more positive attribute of actually defoliating a tree is being able to get in to see that structure. Wow, that was a lot of work, but totally worth it. One thing I wanted to mention also is that now that all the foliage is off, all that sunlight that couldn't get to the inner branches, the very weak branches, is now going to be able to get to those, which will give them an opportunity to get a little bit of length on the size of the branch, so that they can make it out to the outside of the canopy, so that they don't have to rely on the interior branches. They can actually get some sunlight from the tips of the branches, gives them an opportunity to thicken up and develop these branches that we need for the structure, but are just getting so shaded out by the upper full canopy. So another good reason to defoliate your trees. Now, this doesn't work with every tree. Don't go out and defoliate your entire collection. This is for deciduous trees. This is the trees that drop their leaves. If you have an azalea that's leaves are frying, it's not because it needs to be defoliated. It's because it needs filtered sunlight. You can't keep those guys out in the full sun and expect them to last through the hot summers. Now, this tree, even though it is frying, the leaves showed the edges are frying a little bit. It's because the evenings aren't cool enough. That's why these leaves fry up. It just isn't. I mean, we get into the mid 80s or low 80s is our lows for the day. So that's why they really need the cooler evenings to recover a little bit. So when they're totally in heat all the time, that's why the leaves do so poorly. It's a thin leaf as well, but they can handle the full sun. So just kind of keep in mind, like I said, it really depends on the species of tree that you're dealing with. Make sure that you know what the trees want. If it wants filtered sunlight, give it filtered sunlight. But if it is a deciduous tree, you can defoliate, and it's going to grow back again for you during the year. Now, you can see and it's a windy day out here. You know, we are in our rainy season, so storms are coming today. And we get daily rains right now, so another good way for the trees to get a little bit of recovery in the rainwater. So these trees are going to put out new leaves right away. But you can see, look at the structure of this tree. I was on top of this tree this year. I wasn't neglecting it. I thought I had it in pretty good shape. But what happens is all the new growth, instead of growing out where the pads are, I now have growing up to the tips. So I've got all these branches that now need to be wired down into the pad that I want, and then the length reduced back. This will give opportunity for secondary branches off of these tips, but also give me a chance to get some budding back on these. Now, I did mention there are some areas where I don't defoliate, and that's for the utility branches that I use. I have 2 sacrifice branches at the top of this tree, and I'm not going to defoliate those because I want them to keep pulling water up to the tree and keep producing food for the tree and healing over these wounds. So those, I'm just going to let them go. No reason to defoliate those. I'm not trying to build secondary branches. I'm not trying to develop those branches in any way. They are there for a purpose, and that's to cover up scars. And they're doing very, very well. I'm getting a lot of rollover from the cambium, so they're doing a great job. So all I'll do now is just go through, thin out some of these branches just with my clippers. And those branches that are growing from under branches, we're going to just remove and just clean it up. But you can do a lot of clip and grow at this point, just to kind of keep your tree under control. But a little bit of wiring, and just wait a few weeks and I'll have a new flush of leaves, very bright green leaves, which are going to feed this tree for the rest of the year and keep it very healthy. Hope that helps you. If you have any questions, you can always reach me at orlandobonsai.com. I'm also Paul at orlandobonsai.com, and make sure you subscribe. Very important to keep in touch, because I'm putting out videos every week, and you don't want to miss out on those. So again, talk to you later. Thanks.